Hello, my name is Lawrence or Larry Sinclair. I'm producing this video as a direct response to Barack Obama's weekly radio or, quote, YouTube address, in which he continues to try to imply that Republicans are somehow against putting Americans back to work. In Barack Obama's weekly address, he reiterated his demand that the American Jobs Act, which is his so-called jobs bill, be passed and be passed in its entirety and be passed now.
Hello, everyone. It's been almost 3 weeks since I sent the American Jobs Act to Congress. 3 weeks since I sent them a bill that would put people back to work and put money in people's pockets. This jobs bill is fully paid for. This jobs bill contains the kinds of proposals that Democrats and Republicans have supported in the past. And now I want it back. It's time for Congress to get its act together and to pass this jobs bill so I can sign it into law.
Mr. Obama decided he wanted to ask flat out if Republicans were against putting teachers, police officers, and firefighters back to work. I want to address Mr. Obama's implications in his weekly address.
Some Republicans in Congress have said that they agree with certain parts of this jobs bill. If so, it's time for them to tell me what those proposals are. And if they're opposed to this jobs bill, I'd like to know what exactly they're against. Are they against putting teachers and police officers and firefighters back on the job?
As well as give a message to Republicans that you need to stop worrying about the regulation and start relating to the American people. Because the response that should have been applied by the Republican Party to Barack Obama's weekly address should sound something like this. After listening to the official Republican response, I felt that someone should directly respond to Barack Obama's attempts to convince the American people that Republicans are somehow against putting Americans back to work. First, Mr. Obama, you have had almost 3 years to address the unemployment in this country, and 2 of those years was with a Democratic-controlled House, Senate, and White House. Yet, unemployment was not a priority for the Democratic Party, unless, of course, you consider extending unemployment benefits up to approximately 2 years for the unemployed, with money that the states did not have, nor did the federal treasury have, but yet somehow printed, and now the states are on the hook for refunding the federal government those extended unemployment benefits. Allow me to respond to the specific questions you raised in an attempt to paint Republicans as being against putting Americans back to work. Number 1, you continue to promote the American Jobs Act by asking if Republicans are against putting teachers, police officers, and firefighters back to work. I personally find it interesting how you always pick those who are represented by a large, powerful union in calling to have those individuals put back to work. The Republicans should have told you in their response Saturday, no, we're not against putting teachers, police officers, and firefighters back to work. We are, however, against putting these people back to work with temporary fix, second stimulus, only to have them laid off yet again when the federal money dries up. This is exactly what some of these teachers, police officers, and firefighters you talk about are currently out of work because of. They lost their jobs and were laid off because the federal stimulus money ran out. You cannot put America back to work temporarily so that you can win re-election, only to have those same Americans laid off after the November 12 elections. It doesn't work that way. Number 2, why is it that you never talk about the sales clerks, the cooks, the waiters, the mechanics, the bus drivers, the hotel desk clerks, the maids, the sales clerks in Penny's, Sears, tire sales, garbage collectors. Why is it when you talk about putting America back to work, you never bother to mention any of these people who are struggling, who are hurting, and who have been out of work longer than some of these teachers, police officers, and firefighters you keep referring to? Would it be because they're not necessarily represented by a large, powerful union presence, and they can't actually organize and turn out the vote that you're going to need to win re-election next year? Or could it be that you simply really don't care either way? So far, everything that you've put out is about you. And it's about you against the Republicans, and it's not supposed to be that way.
Are they against hiring construction workers to rebuild our roads and bridges and schools?
Number 3, your call for passing the American Jobs Act bill right now so that we can put construction workers back to work fixing our bridges, etc. There's something you fail to include in that. You fail to talk about the fact that road and bridge construction is contracted out by the individual states, or in some cases by the Federal Department of Transportation. But you don't mention the fact that most of these contractors are from outside of the region where the work is being done. They actually bring in a lot of their labor that's put up in local hotels for the period of the construction. And interestingly enough, a very large majority of that labor is illegal, undocumented workers who travel from job to job, state to state with these contractors. You know, this isn't just something off the top of my head. I invite you to locally drive around the 495, 295, 95 construction over by Telegraph Road, or over here the 66 and 395 and 495 construction, over by Falls Church, Tyson's Corners. Take a hard look. In fact, just simply take a walk down Constitution Avenue leading out of the district and look at the number of Mexican workers that are working on the construction projects just on Constitution Avenue alone. This is something that's a problem. Don't get me wrong. I understand that the contractors want to keep as much money as they possibly can out of their contracts with the state and the federal government. But don't turn around and say that you're going to put all these construction workers back to work when you know, as does every other politician in Washington, D.C. right now, that the highway construction projects around the Beltway that are currently taking place have a very large number of undocumented individuals doing that work. Republicans are not against putting Americans back to work. They are, however, as am I, and a whole lot of the American public, are against another $500 billion stimulus that will temporarily put some back to work, but those would be mostly union-represented workers who will be laid off again when the federal money dries up. Republicans are not against putting America back to work, but they are against you and your administration's efforts to pick and choose what Americans get a job and what Americans do not. Republicans are for putting the convenience store clerks, the auto mechanics, the hairstylists, the hardware store clerk, the grocery store baggers and stockers, the truck drivers, the bus drivers, the waiters, cooks, bartenders, hotel clerks, maids, tour guides, etc., and it goes on and on. Those are the Americans that the Republicans are for putting back to work, along with the teachers and the police officers and the firefighters. Republicans are for putting all of America back to work, and not just those who can turn out the vote for their re-election. Mr. Obama, given the recent news about the Solyndra loans and your recent statement to ABC's George Stephanopoulos yesterday that you do not regret having made that loan, you don't have a very good track record when it comes to putting Americans to work or improving the American economy. In fact, the first stimulus has a very poor track record. The fact that we wasted millions of dollars on individual single jobs costing millions of dollars each, and yet the job no longer exists today. That's not getting the American economy back to work again. That's not putting America back to work. Extending unemployment benefits to 2 years is not putting the American economy back on the map. These are all Band-Aid fixes that only last as long as you need something to hold up for you to get a point across or to get some wind behind your sails to push you ahead. Doesn't work that way. Rather than you constantly accusing the Republicans of putting party over country, I think you might want to take some time in the White House and take a very good look in the mirror, because everything you have put out so far has been about party, and it's not been about the American people. And to all of the Republicans in the House and Senate and those seeking the GOP nomination for the 2012 election, you better start responding directly to Obama's attempts to imply you are against putting America back to work. These very teachers, firefighters, and police officers Obama talks about putting back to work are the same ones who were laid off after the first stimulus money ran out. Even these teachers, police, and firefighters would agree they do not want to go back to work only to be laid off a year from now when the money is gone. And to the Republicans, you better start directly responding to Obama's comments, because this constant barrage of talking about Obama needs to meet you and somehow repeal these regulations. People get it. People understand that the economy is struggling because of a lot of unnecessary regulation from the Obama administration. But guess what? The people who are sitting there out of a job don't give a rat's behind about you talking about repealing or doing away or suspending regulations. They care about you telling them that you really are concerned about putting them back to work and not just the union members. And that's my response to Barack Obama's October 1st, 2011 weekly address.